This broadcast is for April 22nd, 2026, Japan time. Welcome to Samurai MLB Talk. Thank you very much for watching. This channel is a place where we explore the essence of humanity through the lens of baseball, through the way we watch the game, the spirit behind it, and the philosophy it reflects from a uniquely Japanese perspective. To our viewers in the English-speaking world, I truly hope you'll enjoy this dialogue about human nature as seen through the game of baseball. Your support means more than I can say. If you enjoy this content, please consider subscribing to the channel. Part 1, Highlights of Japanese Athletes on April 22, 2026, Japan time. Masataka Yoshida of the Red Sox started as the number 3 DH in the game against the Yankees. The team lost 0-4. Yoshida ended the game with no hits. Regarding Yoshida, I feel that the coaching staff and the front office do not view him as a core player. They seem to think it is enough to start him occasionally and use him as a pinch hitter otherwise. I speak about this every time on this broadcast. That is precisely why Yoshida is required to produce some kind of hitting result that contributes to the team, whether it be a hit, an extra base hit, a home run, an advancing productive out, or a sacrifice fly every single time he plays. Looking at how Masataka Yoshida is being utilized, the coaching staff remains skeptical of his hitting. Therefore, it is more important than anything else for him to produce results every time he plays to create a reason why they must start him in the next game. Yoshida is in a situation where he has no choice but to keep grabbing opportunities by leaving results in the games he appears in. It is that difficult of a situation. Yoshida signed with the Red Sox as a master of hitting. However, it took a considerable amount of time for him to adapt to the MLB environment. Currently, Yoshida has become accustomed to the MLB environment and is able to perform his own style of hitting, but it took far too long to reach his current level. Yoshida has been playing in MLB since the 2023 season, but it was not until the end of last season that he finally grasped how to showcase his hitting on the MLB stage. It took a bit too much time. The coaching staff no longer has expectations for Yoshida. This is clear from his usage. They would never use a batter they truly expect results from in a way where he is in the lineup one day and out the next. Whether he is hitting or not, such a player should always be in the starting lineup. While Yoshida has had opportunities to start consecutively recently, looking at his usage before he hit that walk-off hit, one could sense that Yoshida was no longer needed by the Red Sox. However, since his contract remains and the Red Sox are paying a high amount to Yoshida, they have to use him in some capacity. They don't expect much, but the cost is high. Therefore, it only looks like they are using him because they have no choice. Returning to my earlier point, because this situation exists, Yoshida needs to somehow continue producing results that contribute to the team whenever he gets an opportunity. I feel there is no longer a place for Yoshida in the Red Sox. That is how much I question his usage. In the future, more players who are evaluated as great hitters in NPB will likely challenge MLB just like Yoshida. However, if I could give one piece of advice, they should look closely at Yoshida's current situation and learn from it. Yoshida entered into a high-priced contract in his first move to MLB. Signing a high-priced contract means the responsibility to perform accordingly arises. No matter how much one succeeded in NPB, it does not guarantee success in MLB. Currently, among young Japanese players, Munetaka Murakami is making headlines by hitting home runs day after day. He signed a contract that is not that expensive, but in the team environment of the White Sox, he starts in almost every game and is able to appeal his true self. Japanese players, especially position players, must not sign high-priced contracts during their first MLB move. In the first contract, what you should negotiate for more than money is the opportunity to play. If it is a 2-year contract, you secure playing opportunities for those 2 years. In exchange, you set the contract amount low. By doing so, you can establish a period to adapt to MLB. there is a high possibility of entering into a balanced contract with the club. Unlike pitchers, position players have the task of hitting back a ball thrown by an opposing pitcher. In NPB and MLB, even a single ball thrown by a pitcher is completely different. Japanese hitters cannot showcase their own hitting unless they get used to that. Munetaka Murakami struggled at first, but gradually he became able to show his true self. He is being given many opportunities to play and many opportunities to stand in the batter's box. You learn by gaining experience on the field. You find your MLB hitting style through physical experience. That is what a baseball player is. Yoshida did not go through that process and suddenly signed a high-priced contract with the Red Sox. When Yoshida signed with the Red Sox, he had performed brilliantly in the 2023 WBC, and with the impact of the unicorn Shohei Ohtani, expectations for Japanese hitters were very high. That is why the Red Sox signed Yoshida to a high-priced contract. However, what Yoshida needed was not a high-priced contract, but a contract where he could gain playing opportunities even if the amount was low, to get used to the MLB environment and gain the time needed until he could showcase his own hitting in that environment. Money is something that follows automatically if you produce results. Above all, if you don't gain the time to get into games and explore how to demonstrate your own performance, you will end up like Yoshida, getting chances but not producing results, and before you know it, being treated as someone who naturally gets dropped from the starting lineup. It is already too late. All that can be done now is for Masataka Yoshida to firmly leave results whenever he has a rare opportunity to play or start. Many Japanese players will likely challenge MLB from now on. As for pitchers, since it is an action that starts from themselves, as long as there are no injuries, there is no problem signing a high-priced contract even in the first MLB move. As for hitters, since they must perform the task of handling balls thrown by MLB pitchers, time is necessary. For hitters, in their first MLB contract, it is more important than anything else to have a low amount and gain many playing opportunities. Seeing Masataka Yoshida's current situation, I want to give that advice to Japanese players challenging MLB in the future. I only hope that Masataka Yoshida remains in the starting lineup in the next game and beyond. And I want him to approach the games with a strong will to continue producing results in every single game he is called upon to start. Kazuma Okamoto of the Blue Jays played as the number 7 third baseman in the game against the Angels. The team won 4-2. Kazuma Okamoto had no hits, but his line drive to third in the fourth inning showed a sharp contact. Also, his fly ball to left in the seventh inning was almost a home run into the left field stands, so I think the content of these two outs was good. Unlike before, these are outs that can be viewed positively, so there is no need to worry about Okamoto. I get the impression that perhaps some fatigue from traveling had an influence. He is still in his MLB debut year and is in a period where he must still adapt to the environment. Even so, I think he is doing very well. I expect to see Okamoto lead the team to victory with his performance in the next game. Shota Imanaga of the Cubs started the game against the Phillies. The team won 7-4. Shota Imanaga pitched brilliantly, going 7 innings and allowing only 1 run, earning his second win of the season. Seiya Suzuki played as the number 5 right fielder in the game against the Phillies. He contributed greatly to the team's victory, including hitting a massive home run in the 7th inning. I will talk about the details later. The next Ohtani, Munetaka Murakami of the White Sox, played as the number 2 first baseman in the game against the Diamondbacks. The team won 11-5. Murakami went on a rampage with 3 hits, 1 RBI, 1 walk, and 1 home run. He showcased a performance worthy of the next Ohtani. I will talk about the details later. Shohei Ohtani of the Dodgers was in a game where his consecutive game on-base record was at stake. Splendidly, in his final at-bat, he recorded an infield hit to shortstop, updating his consecutive game on-base record to 53. Also, Yoshinobu Yamamoto of the Dodgers started the away game against the Giants. The team lost 1-3. Although Yamamoto allowed 3 runs in the first inning, he showed stable pitching thereafter, ending with a performance of 3 runs allowed over 7 innings. I will talk about the details later. Part 2, the performance of Cubs Imanaga and Suzuki, and the next Ohtani. Cubs pitcher Shota Imanaga started against the Phillies and showed a wonderful performance, allowing only 1 run over 7 innings. I believe that at the point he finished the 6th inning, he could have stepped off the mound if he had said so. However, he sets what he needs to do high in every game, and this game against the Phillies was a manifestation of that. If a starting pitcher throws 7 innings, it helps the relief pitchers. The coaching staff must have been delighted as well. Although he was hit for a home run by Schwarber in the 6th inning, that was Imanaga's only mistake. I think Imanaga showed us a performance worthy of an ace this time. I believe he will showcase many more performances like today's throughout the season. Regarding Seiya Suzuki, the massive 2-run home run in the 7th inning draws attention, but I want you to focus on the at-bat before that. In the bottom of the 6th inning, with the score tied 1-1 and runners on first and third with 1 out. In that situation, if Suzuki hit a timely hit, the right to become the winning pitcher would go to the starter, Shota Imanaga. Suzuki ended up striking out looking. For Suzuki, who admires and respects Imanaga, the fact that he could not produce the hitting to grant Shota Imanaga the win, and that he ended with a strikeout looking, must have been a considerable amount of stress. That frustration exploded all at once in the 7th inning with 2 outs and a runner on first. It was an encounter with Tim Mayza of the Phillies. The first pitch, a low slider at 84.5 miles per hour, was taken for a ball. The second pitch, a high sinker at 93.8 miles per hour, he swung and fouled it off. The third pitch, a low slider at 85.7 miles per hour, he scooped up and drove it out of the park to left for a 2-run home run. Please pay attention to Suzuki's expression in the batter's box right after he hit that ball to left. He glared at the ball as it flew far away, and it was a scene as if the anger from the strikeout looking in the previous at-bat had generated that kind of distance. Suzuki had reportedly been working on a hitting adjustment with his coach because his timing was a bit early. After the 93.8 miles per hour sinker on the second pitch, he was able to handle the 85.7 miles per hour slider on the third pitch without his timing being thrown off, which I believe led to that massive blast. It was a superb hit. After striking out looking in a go-ahead situation in the 6th and feeling stress toward himself, he converted that stress into power in his 7th inning at-bat. It was truly Seiya Suzuki's home run of rage. With Imanaga's quality start and the lineup clicking, along with Suzuki's home run, the Cubs are in a very good flow with the victory. I am looking forward to seeing Cubs pitcher Shota Imanaga and player Seiya Suzuki show many more performances that contribute to the team's victory in this way. The next Ohtani as a hitter, Munetaka Murakami of the White Sox, hit another one. He showcased another home run. Attention toward Munetaka Murakami, who continues to showcase wonderful hitting day after day, is only increasing. On social media, every time Murakami hits a home run, the scene is being spread. The next Ohtani, Munetaka Murakami, is steadily permeating the consciousness of baseball fans around the world as a hitter. In Japan, many fans already understand the greatness of Munetaka Murakami's hitting, so there is not much surprise. However, there are surely many fans rejoicing that his characteristic hitting can be seen so early in his MLB debut. Regarding Munetaka Murakami, the distance of his home runs and his exit velocity, which are not inferior to Shohei Ohtani's, tend to draw attention, but what I focused on this time was Munetaka Murakami's full-out play. The local broadcast station was also praising Murakami, but he never cuts corners, even in games where he contributes to the team with a home run. In today's game as well, he sprinted all out on a ground ball to shortstop in the 6th inning and was safe. In that scene, if it were an ordinary power hitter, no one would complain even if they ran lightly and were out. However, Murakami always aims to win and does what he can do now with his full effort. Under the exact same mindset as the unicorn Shohei Ohtani, regardless of whether he has hit a home run or significantly contributed to the team in that game, he gives his all for a single base. This is truly the samurai spirit that is the theme of this program. Today's 9th home run was magnificent. However, what was even more amazing was his sincere attitude toward baseball, not letting up even after hitting a home run. I am convinced that is why Murakami is expected to be the next Ohtani. He will likely continue to produce home runs in large quantities. Right now, other teams are analyzing the characteristics of Murakami's hitting and are starting to put effort into shutting him down. I am sure that from here on, Murakami will be thoroughly marked by every team, and difficult games will follow. However, Murakami is the one who goes above that. That has been proven in NPB as well. In MLB as well, I am sure that no matter what measures each team takes against Murakami, Munetaka Murakami will surely hit back. Also, in this game, there was a scene where two players, Vargas of the White Sox and Murakami, appealed for an ABS challenge, but the umpire refused. Apparently, the rule is that an ABS challenge must be claimed within 2 seconds of the umpire's call. I feel that both Vargas and Murakami claimed the ABS within 2 seconds, but the umpire refused. Witnessing such a scene, I think improvements to the ABS rules are necessary. Instead of having the umpire on the field judge whether the batter's ABS claim was within 2 seconds, I think it would be better if a third party checked the monitor to judge if the batter claimed the ABS within 2 seconds of the umpire's ball call. Umpires on the field may miss it even if a player claims the ABS quickly. Regarding this matter, I strongly hope that MLB thoroughly verifies the scene and works to ensure that such a scene never happens again. Part 3, Shohei Ohtani's on-base record continues. Yoshinobu Yamamoto is an ace no matter what. As I mentioned at the beginning of the program, Shohei Ohtani of the Dodgers updated his consecutive game on-base record to 53 with an infield hit to shortstop in his final at-bat in the game against the Giants. Just like Munetaka Murakami's infield hit I mentioned earlier, Shohei Ohtani also recorded a hit through sheer tenacity and a full-out sprint. While Shohei Ohtani hitting easy home runs is charming, the sight of Shohei Ohtani trying to snatch a hit with a full-out sprint also feels charming in another way. He is in poor form right now. I have been reporting on this broadcast that Ohtani is in poor form. Despite that, because he can still get on base, hit, get extra base hits, and sometimes hit home runs, many people remain unaware that Ohtani has fallen into a slump. That is Ohtani's greatness, and it is a feat that only he can achieve. I think today's tenacious infield hit to shortstop was as valuable as those massive home runs he often hits. It must have been a very good example for children aiming to become baseball players. Isn't the sight of Shohei Ohtani, who is capable of hitting home runs, sprinting toward first base aiming for a single hit, the true form of a baseball player? While Shohei Ohtani didn't have a flashy performance today, I want to express my respect for him showcasing a wonderful play as a baseball player. Regarding Yoshinobu Yamamoto, although he allowed 3 runs in the first inning, there was an error by a teammate, and there were some unlucky parts. In the first inning, his command was not settled, and he was in a situation where he had no pitches to throw. However, from the second inning onward, he became a different person. The Giants players must have been surprised, wondering, did someone swap with the Yamamoto from the first inning? It was a game where Yoshinobu Yamamoto's greatness was seen. The greatness of Yoshinobu Yamamoto lies in his stable pitching technique and the precision of his control, but even more than that, it was a game that showed the high level of his ability to make adjustments. From the second inning onward, he is able to showcase a version of himself that is completely different from the first inning. It is not easy to showcase your best self on the mound from the second inning onward after a failure in the first inning. It is not something that can be done easily. To not dwell on failure, to compose your spirit, and to showcase your strengths on the mound once again. An average pitcher would be mentally disturbed and would have stepped off the mound in the first inning with a large number of runs allowed. However, Yoshinobu Yamamoto's pitching gets better after allowing runs. As the innings progress, his pitching power increases more and more, and as the innings progress, the opposing lineup struggles more and more. There are not many pitchers in the world who can pitch like this. That is why he is called the unrivaled Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Although they lost this game, Yoshinobu Yamamoto did what he had to do as a starting pitcher and as the ace of the Dodgers. Even while in poor form, he completed his pitching and contributed to the team. It was magnificent. In the next game, I hope the Dodgers lineup shows a game where they pitch as wonderfully as today and Yamamoto gets the win. Also, I would like to bring up the complaint from the Cubs Craig Counsell regarding the Ohtani rule that I spoke about after yesterday's broadcast. Counsell is claiming that regarding the Ohtani rule, while normally 13 pitchers are registered, the Ohtani rule alone allows for 14 pitchers to be registered. He argues that it is unfair. Manager Roberts of the Dodgers has also commented on this matter, but the Ohtani rule applies to two-way players. In other words, other teams should just find a two-way player like Shohei Ohtani. Furthermore, I assert that the Ohtani rule is not unfair. If other teams had a player like Shohei Ohtani who could perform as a two-way player, and yet the number of pitchers that could be registered remained at 13, that would be unfair. A rule change would be needed immediately. However, the reality is different. For two-way players, registration as a 14th pitcher is permitted for any club. In other words, if a player like Shohei Ohtani were on another team, that team could also register 14 pitchers. If there were a two-way player on the Cubs, the registration for Cubs pitchers would increase from 13 to 14. If there were a two-way player on one's own team and the Ohtani rule were still only applied to the Dodgers, I would feel that claiming it is unfair is correct. MLB should change the rule immediately. However, in reality, the Ohtani rule allows teams with a two-way player to have a pitcher registration of 14 instead of the usual 13. As long as they find a two-way player, the Cubs can also increase their 13-pitcher registration limit to 14. This is not called unfair. It is just jealousy from teams that cannot find a two-way player. While it is called the Ohtani rule, one should understand that it is not a rule where Shohei Ohtani actually gains an advantage, but rather that the consideration for two-way players being codified into a rule is called the Ohtani rule. If Counsell wants to have a 14-pitcher limit, the Cubs should acquire a two-way player. They should develop one. Then, the two-way rule will be happily adopted, and they can increase the pitcher limit from 13 to 14. Because Shohei Ohtani is a two-way player, there are parts that cannot be applied to rules for players with only one position, so it looks like a rule exclusively for Shohei Ohtani. However, the original purpose of the rule's enactment is not for Shohei Ohtani, but rather a rule for when future two-way players appear, and right now, the only one to whom that rule applies is Shohei Ohtani. And since that Shohei Ohtani is a member of the Dodgers, the special rule for two-way players is applied to the Dodgers, and the pitcher limit is 14 instead of 13. It is not unfair at all. If the number of players who can perform as two-way players increases in the future, this rule will be utilized as a correct rule. Since Ohtani is currently the only two-way player, it is seen as a rule exclusively for Ohtani, and it is being said that only the Dodgers are receiving the benefit. The Ohtani rule is not a rule only for Shohei Ohtani. I strongly believe that what is required now is for the entire baseball world to share the understanding that this is a rule for future two-way players. That is all for today. Thank you very much.